Good afternoon. My name is Zeb Davenport, and I serve as the Vice President for University Advancement, and I dropped my pen, picked my pen up, University Advancement and External Affairs here at Westchester University, and I would like to welcome and thank our entire community of educators and our external partners for joining us today for the President's Welcome Back Address. For those of you who are new to the university, the President's Welcome Back Address is one of our campus's many traditions. In fact, it's the time where the President reflects on our past achievements and provides us with a vision for our future. However, today, and without spoiling anything, our new President will have a bit of a different approach. So today is a very special address because it is the first Welcome Back address for our new President, Dr. Laurie Bernotsky, as she assumes the role of the 16th President of Westchester University. Let's give her a round of applause. Dr. Bernotsky is a first-generation college graduate who earned a master's and doctorate in politics from Oxford University. And in her spare time, she happened to pick up a master's in sociology from Temple University. I mention her educational pursuits because I believe she's a living example for any first-generation college student, faculty, staff, or administrator in the audience, that we can do anything we put our minds to. Dr. Bernotsky is the personification of sheer intelligence, dedication, determination, tenacity, and persistence. Laurie began her career at Westchester University in 1996 as a member of the political science faculty. 15 years later, she became the associate provost and dean of graduate studies. In 2015, she was promoted to provost, and she successfully led the university's Division of Academic Affairs, which is comprised of approximately 900 faculty, 6 colleges, and 2 schools that offer over 100 academic degree programs. Also encompasses the Centers for Social and Economic Research and International Programs, which is now the Center for Global Engagement, and the offices of Institutional Research, Undergraduate Admissions, Enrollment Management, Financial Aid, the Graduate School, and Undergraduate Student Support Services. In 2017, Laurie assumed the role of Executive Vice President. As the university's second-in-command, she also provided leadership for the university's budget and labor relations functions. Most recently, as a loaned executive from the state system, Laurie was the interim president of Pennsylvania Western University, also known as Penn West. And folks, in less than 2 years, she was able to reduce a very large deficit to a very reasonable deficit, and if they continue her financial plan and the stars aligned, they could very easily achieve a balanced budget in a couple of years. And folks, I know firsthand some of the challenges and hurdles that Laurie faced and ultimately overcame to put Penn West on the right track. And I'm going to go off script for a minute because have you ever loaned somebody a book or a tool or a lawn, some device, and they never gave it back to you? Yeah, I see some head nods. Well, I'm here to say I'm so thankful that they gave her back to Westchester University. Yeah. It is her work ethic, her approach to leadership, her dedication to higher education, and her brilliant mind that has catapulted Laurie to the place where she is today. She's without a doubt recognized throughout the Commonwealth as a highly respected and effective leader in areas such as budgeting and finance, academic excellence, and leading complex organizations. You see, Laurie is one who listens, she is inclusive, she values the thoughts and opinions of others, and she will certainly make you feel like you matter. Because to Laurie, we all matter. Known for being a transformative leader in higher education, Dr. Laurie Bernotsky is well prepared to help Westchester University chart its path toward the next 150 years. My friends, she's focused on the success of this university. She cares deeply about the faculty, staff, and administrators here at Westchester. And her main priority was, is, and will always be the success of our amazing students. So without further ado, I am honored to present to some and introduce to others the 16th president of Westchester University, Dr. R. Lorraine, but you can call her Laurie, Bernotsky. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. And thank you so much, our incomparable Golden Rams marching band. That was a wonderful surprise. And thanks for that just incredibly warm welcome. Before I dive in, since I'm thanking people already, I just want to say this stage, how beautiful this looks, this film footage, there's so much work. I don't know if you know, so much work that goes into putting on an event like this. And it's kind of like a holiday dinner, right? You spend days and weeks preparing, and it's over in half an hour. So if you don't mind, can we just, I won't name everybody because there's so many teams involved. Can we just take a moment and thank all the people who worked so hard to make a beautiful event to help me practice. Thank you so much. So with that, let me just say I'm delighted and honored and so excited to be talking to you all today as the 16th president of Westchester University. Thank you. The journey that brought me to this day, to this job, to this speech, is a journey that began many years ago and many miles away, actually almost 8,000 miles away, in the country of South Africa. It was back in the summer of 2000. During that summer, I participated in an Honors College International program that took students to South Africa. Of course, when I agreed to go on that trip, there was something I did not know. I did not know that as a junior faculty member going up for tenure, that my roommate would be none other than, wait for it, the university president at the time, Madeline Wing Adler. Now think about that. We were going to be roommates, and not roommates in posh suites or luxurious accommodations. We were going to be roommates in close, cramped, confined quarters. For instance, I knew that one night on the trip, we would be rooming together in a small, sparse guard shack on Robben Island. Robben Island was a place where they imprisoned Nelson Mandela. Imagine knowing as a junior faculty member that you would be having a sleepover with the university president in a tiny tin shack. I was petrified. I was panicked. I had so many worries and so many questions. What if I snore? What if my hair looks really crazy one morning, like it looks most mornings? What if I don't have time to put my face on? What if there's a morning when I'm sporting crazy hair, I don't have my face on, and I say something really stupid? I'm happy to say that none of those worries came to pass. I ended up having a fabulous experience as Madeline's roommate, and that fabulous experience included all kinds of great conversations. In one of those conversations, Madeline suggested that I should consider moving into an administrative role at the university. This was something I hadn't considered. I was a teacher. I loved teaching. I couldn't imagine myself in a job that took me outside the classroom. You know, when I first joined the political science faculty at our university back in 1996, they had me teaching classes in research methods and statistics. Those were the classes the faculty didn't want to teach because they were the classes that students didn't want to take. And we all know how important student evaluations are. And Margaret, don't worry. Yes, I know it is student feedback now. But I actually really love teaching those classes. I love teaching them because you could really see students mastering skills they didn't think they could master. There were those moments when I'd be talking about something like how to interpret a chi-square result, and you could see in students' eyes, they just weren't getting it. So I'd give them a bit more explanation, and then maybe a bit more explanation, and then finally we would arrive at that moment when I could see that they did get it, that moment when the light switch turned on and brightened their entire expressions. I love those little moments of learning because as they accumulate, they have such a big impact on our students' lives. I told Madeline that I'd really miss those moments if I stepped out of the classroom to become an administrator. Madeline said, "Let me give you a different way to think about this." She told me that taking on an administrative role did not mean having less impact on students' lives. It meant impacting even more students' lives. I found that pretty persuasive. And as Madeline made that point many times over our 2 weeks in South Africa, I started thinking about trying out an administrative role at the university. I would eventually take on many such roles, but I never imagined that my path would culminate in me serving as this university's president. All of you fellow allergy sufferers, you'll forgive me if I take some sips of water, right? My antihistamines are working. So, this spot, this job, this speech is never quite where I expected to be. But since I'm here, I've thought a lot about what's expected of me and what's expected of my first full speech to the university. In a speech like this, it's often expected that a new leader will outline their vision, and it's often expected that the vision will come with lots of bullet points, outlining lots of specific goals that have lots of matching measurable outcomes. That way, everyone knows exactly what the leader intends to do, what the leader intends to prioritize, and what the leader intends to fund. And of course, that's what everyone is worried about when someone new takes charge. If that's what's expected of me today, I'm going to really disappoint you. I can't present a full vision for our university today. I can't do that because that's not the kind of leader I am, and it's not the kind of president I hope to be. While today I can't give you a complete plan for our university, I can give you a pretty good idea of my leadership approach for our university. My approach to leadership is something I have developed over many years. I've developed it by watching lots of leaders in lots of situations. As I've watched them in action, I've tried to keep what's good and obviously avoid what's bad. Let me give you just one example. Over the summers, when I was in college, I worked at a residential summer camp in Lancaster County. It was a camp where underprivileged kids from urban areas came for a rural experience, a place where they could shoot arrows, ride horses, swim in a big lake, play all sorts of outdoor games. At that camp, I started out as a camp counselor, and I eventually moved up to become the camp's assistant director. In fact, along the way, I once even won the Super Counselor Award. And if you're wondering what it took to win that award, I won it by winning the one-match challenge. For that challenge, you had to light a campfire, cook dinner for your campers, keep that fire going all night long, and then cook breakfast on it. And you had to do it all with just one match. Seriously. And I won a lot. And that's kind of like being a university administrator, except instead of having to do everything with just one match, we're asked to do everything with just $1. With my leadership style, I've always enjoyed such challenges, but I should also make it clear that even though I'm excited about working with all of you, I don't plan to cook all of you breakfast over an open campfire. But I am happy to hand out snacks to our students over finals week. Once I had moved into the job of assistant camp director, I had my big chance to demonstrate my leadership abilities. That big chance came one night when the camp director decided to take his wife out for dinner. That meant I was going solo. I was in charge. While in charge, my big task was running a game of capture the flag. We always set this game up on a field, and we put out these orange cones to mark off the field of play. My boss was always very exacting in how he set up those cones. But on that fateful night, I decided to do something different. I set the cones up differently, in a way that made more sense, a way that allowed more campers to join in the game. And that night, the game went well, very well. Many campers chased after the flags, and as they did so, there was lots of shouting and laughing and smiling. I thought it was a smashing success. My boss thought differently. When he returned to camp and he saw what I had done, he was furious. He demanded to know why I set the cones up that way. I told him I did it so more kids could play. I told him it worked better, but I was clearly telling him something that he didn't want to hear. He let me know, in no uncertain terms, that my job was not to redo things or to change things or to fix things. My job was to do things as he wanted them done. He even said to me, and I will never ever forget this line. He said, "I am, therefore you are. I am, therefore you are." Think about that. What he meant was that my only thoughts should be his thoughts. My only ideas should be his ideas. My only plans should be his plans. I remember coming away from that conversation thinking, that man is a terrible boss and a terrible leader, and I really hope he's not here today. I also remember thinking, camp is for the campers. It's not for you. That day taught me a valuable lesson in leadership. It taught me I never want to be that sort of leader. I never want to be a leader who thinks, I am, therefore you are. I never want to be a leader who insists that the cones must be set up a certain way, even if other ways make more sense. I never want to be a leader who insists that my ideas are the only ones worth considering. Because I never want to be that sort of leader, I can't come to you today with some sort of predetermined vision. I can't do that because that would be like me insisting that the cones must be set up a certain way before considering anyone else's thoughts on the matter. In my approach to leadership, I'm much less interested in imposing my vision upon you all. I'm much more interested in us all creating a shared vision together, a shared vision for our university that we can all embrace and all work to implement. So, how exactly do we create that shared vision? My plan is to start off my new leadership role with what I call a mutual listening tour. I want to start off with a mutual listening tour because I believe we make progress by listening and learning. Too often, we just don't listen to each other, and we would be so much better off if we just listened more. Over the course of my career, I can recall countless moments in meetings when I would say something, and then 15 minutes later, a colleague would say the exact same thing as if it were the best example ever of an original thought. How many of you has that ever happened to? Am I right? Okay. Over time, as I've experienced those moments, I realized my colleagues weren't being rude, they weren't being insensitive, and they weren't even being insulting. They just weren't listening. From such moments, I've also come to appreciate how frustrating it can be to feel unheard and unrecognized and unseen. In my approach to leadership, I will be careful to avoid creating any such moments for any of you. In my approach to leadership, I've always strived to recognize that everyone is someone of value, someone worthy of dignity and respect. One of my favorite quotes comes from Maya Angelou, who famously said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." One of the best ways to make people feel that they have value and that they have dignity, and that they are respected, is to simply listen to them, to really listen to them. So in my leadership role, I can't promise that I'll always agree with your ideas, or like your ideas, or adopt your ideas, but I can promise I will do my best to listen to your ideas. I'll get started on fulfilling that promise with this mutual listening tour, and on that tour, I plan to meet with all sorts of groups of faculty, students, staff, administrators, other stakeholders. In that groups, I want to listen to your ideas about our university. I want to listen to your thoughts about where we are, where we should be, and how we will get there. On that listening tour, I will do my best to seek out a representative sample of voices. For many years, as Zeb mentioned, I ran the university's Center for Social and Economic Research. At that center, we did lots of work conducting polls and assessing public opinion. So yes, I am a data geek and a survey research nerd, I admit it. So I have a real appreciation for the fact that you can't gauge public opinion with a non-representative sample or with a convenience sample. You need to work harder than that. You have to hear from lots of different voices. You can't just listen to the people who are the easiest to reach, or the most willing to talk, or the most worked up about something. Instead, you have to work hard to hear the hard-to-hear voices. So on my listening tour, I intend to dig deep into our university community to find the voices we don't often hear. That may mean that one day I just show up at your office for a chat. If that happens, I hope you'll see my visit as something that's inviting and not intimidating. I hope you will see it as an inviting conversation that gives you a chance to share your thoughts, your ideas, and your hopes for our university. And to set the right tone for our conversation, I'll even bring snacks. Who doesn't like snacks? When it comes to the mutual listening tour, let me be clear about a couple of things. The fact that I want to listen to your ideas doesn't mean that I have no ideas of my own. Any of you who know me at all know I have ideas, lots of ideas, and yes, some of those ideas are tucked away in Excel sheets. I see the tour as a time when we can mutually listen to ideas, exchange ideas, evaluate ideas, and sort out the best ideas to advance our university. When listening is a one-way street, it quickly becomes a dead-end street. I also want to make it clear that while I will listen to all ideas, I'll be partial to some ideas more than others. That's because I have some non-negotiable values when it comes to moving our university forward. So what are those non-negotiable values? First, I favor ideas that enhance the learning and living experiences of our students. And I view ideas that move us in the opposite direction far less favorably. Many of you have heard me say that I want Westchester to be a place that students fall in love with. After all, this place is for them. The work we do for them. Just as I was insistent in the past, the campus for the campers, I'm equally insistent in the present, college is for the college students. When it comes to ideas for enhancing the student experience at our university, I want to avoid specifics before the mutual listening tour. However, let me make just one departure from that plan. It has become abundantly clear to me during my first weeks as president that we absolutely must, find a way to overcome our student housing shortage. I'm looking forward to working with all of you to address that shortage. My second non-negotiable value, I favor ideas that make our university more affordable and more accessible to students. And I view ideas that move us in the opposite direction far less favorably. Many of you know my story. I've always viewed higher education as the great equalizer, and my life attests to its equalizing power. I came from a family of very modest means in rural Pennsylvania. My sister and I were the first in my family to go to college. We were actually the first in my family to even think about college. Along my academic journey, there were some amazing opportunities for me. I was fortunate enough to be accepted at Oxford University for graduate work. I remember calling my parents. I was so thrilled, I was so excited to let them know I'd been accepted at Oxford. You want to know the first thing they said to me when I told them the big news? They simply said, "You can't go." That was it. You can't go. They couldn't see me as the kind of person that could go to Oxford, and they knew that I certainly wasn't the kind of person who could afford Oxford. Opportunities like that just weren't for somebody like me. But I did go, and I was only able to go because I received an enormous amount of financial help. And let me just add one thing. My parents ultimately were extremely supportive of me going, so much so that my dad flew with me on my first flight over so I could put a bunch of my stuff in his suitcases because I couldn't fit all my luggage. With that help, an amazing educational opportunity opened up for me, and that opportunity changed my entire life. This is what I want Westchester to be for our students, an accessible opportunity that forever changes their lives. After all, an amazing education is a meaningless education if you can't access it. That's why I feel efforts like our Moonshot for Equity are so essential to our university. Our Moonshot mission is often misunderstood. The mission is about breaking down barriers to success for all students. It's not about making classes less challenging for some students. It's about giving all students the support they need to overcome challenges. That support comes in many forms, from more student mentoring to more flexible student schedules. And our Moonshot mission is showing some impressive results. Over the past 5 years, the equity gap in our graduation rates has dropped 45% for Black students and 38% for Latinx students. That's important because when students start at Westchester but can't finish their degrees, we've done little for them. But when we give all students the support they need to graduate, then we become that educational opportunity that will forever change their lives. My third non-negotiable: I favor ideas that move our university to the next level, and I view ideas that move us in the opposite direction far less favorably. What exactly do I mean by that? Westchester is thought of as an excellent school in the state system, an excellent school in the Philadelphia area, and an excellent school within the state of Pennsylvania. I want us to think bigger. I want Westchester to be thought of as an excellent school on a national level. I want us to be a national model for what universities should be. And they should be places that provide an amazing, affordable, and accessible education to their students. And I'm partial to any ideas that will take us to that next level. So hopefully you're learning a lot about my leadership style. You know that I'm not an I am therefore you are kind of leader. In fact, you know that I find that sort of leadership style demoralizing. You know that I'm a leader who believes strongly in listening and learning. You also know that I'm a leader who is partial to particular ideas. I do have some non-negotiable values when it comes to moving our university forward. So what else can I tell you about my leadership approach? I am very much a believer in collaboration and shared governance, because approaching things collaboratively means approaching things successfully. Let me give you one example of that. Most of you know that I recently did a 2-year stint as the interim president at Penn West. Penn West faced some, you heard Zeb talk about it, some unique and daunting budget challenges. When I took that position, everyone above me was convinced the only way to meet those challenges would be through faculty retrenchment. And everyone below me was convinced that I had been brought in to fire faculty. So, suffice it to say, no one at Penn West was very happy to see me. In fact, at my very first Council of Trustees meeting, I was referred to as, quote, program executioner and budgetary overlord. Seriously, how's that for a title? But I worked to build relationships on the Penn West campuses, particularly with 3 fabulous union presidents. We spent lots of time together, held lots of meetings together, did lots of talking together, and rumor has it we shared beers together. I will not confirm or deny. But we looked at all the math for Penn West's budget. I explained we had to go from point A to point B, and I asked them to help me figure out the best way to get there. And working together, working collaboratively, we came up with some very good solutions. We found ways to meet key budget targets without any faculty retrenchment. So in my role as scary budgetary overlord, I never sent out a single faculty retrenchment letter. Maybe I wasn't so scary after all. Those sorts of smart solutions are so much easier to find when we work together collaboratively. I'm not only a leader who believes in collaboration, but I'm also a leader who recognizes that sometimes I get things wrong. It's best to admit in this first speech to the university community, I will not always be right. But leaders who think they're always right make decisions that are often wrong. I'm very aware of the fact that I can be wrong. Earlier I mentioned I'm looking forward to sharing and exchanging ideas with you through a mutual listening tour. That exchange of ideas is important because you never know how good an idea is until you give someone the chance to say it's really bad. I learned that lesson many times over the course of my career. One such time came in the midst of the COVID crisis. At that time, the university was trying to figure out a way to get our students back onto campus, back into our classrooms, but we had to do it in a way that was consistent with the governor's order on social distancing. Jeff and I created this intricate plan that would rotate different groups of students in different classes on different days to ensure enough space for proper social distancing. We were so proud of our plan. We thought it was so inventive, innovative, ingenious. Then we proudly presented our plan to what would become the shared governance faculty group. After our presentation, our brilliant plan survived for, all about 1 minute. It took about 1 minute before a faculty member in the room said, I see the plan ensures social distancing in the classroom, but none of that's going to matter once our students are outside the classroom. Once they're in the halls, none of them will worry about social distancing rules. After hearing that comment, I looked at Jeff and said, damn it, we missed that. How did we not think of that? In that moment, it was clear to me that I was mistaken. Jeff was also mistaken, for the record. I love that gets applause. From such humbling moments, I've learned that I, like everyone else on this campus, view things from a limited vantage point. And it's always better when we can enlarge the view. That, again, is why I believe that a mutual listening tour is so essential to the start of my presidency. So I'm a leader who will sometimes make mistakes, but I will always admit to those mistakes. I'm also a leader with a more informal style. Certainly, the presidency is a serious job, but I also believe that leaders become less effective when they take themselves too seriously. On campus, you won't always see me in a suit. All right, let me be honest. On campus, you may occasionally see me in a suit. When it comes to attire, the best I can promise, I won't come to meetings in yoga pants, unless we're talking about Zoom meetings, and then the best I can promise is you won't see my yoga pants. When it comes to the formality that typically comes with the presidency, it's been very interesting to watch folks struggle to figure out what to call me. Do we still call her Laurie? Do we now call her President Bernotsky? Do we call her Madam President? Or do we now call her University Overlord? I did just make that one up, but it would be a pretty cool title. I've been on this campus for 28 years, and during all of that time, you all have known me as Laurie. While I've changed jobs, the new job has not changed who I am. While my new job comes with a fancy nameplate, it doesn't come with a new name. In other words, moving forward, my hope is you will all continue to call me Laurie. As a leader, I think keeping things somewhat informal is important because informality produces a level of comfort. Comfort produces good conversations. Good conversations produce great ideas, and great ideas move our university forward. I have worked under bosses where I was never quite comfortable enough, never quite willing enough to share my ideas. I hope to never be that sort of leader on our campus. So while today you did not get a painstaking plan for our university's future, I hope you did get a fairly full impression of my leadership approach for our university. It's an approach that leans heavily on listening, an approach that values collaboration and shared governance, an approach that is fairly informal, an approach that admits mistakes, and also an approach that is grounded in some non-negotiable values for our university moving forward. Let me end today by mentioning one final characteristic of my leadership approach. I am passionately committed to our university, and I am passionate about the work we do as a university. I am someone who bleeds purple and gold. If I ever need a blood transfusion, it'll need to come from some long-timer at WCU. John Baker, I'm looking at you. Westchester has been at the heart of my entire career, and I can't imagine myself anywhere else. I love our campus. I love our people. I love our university. There are so many places on our campus that have taken on special meaning to me over the years. One such place is the iconic arches of Phillips Hall. I just love walking through those arches each morning when I come to work. As I walk through that striking stone passage, I like to look at the statue of Frederick Douglass as it towers over the De Baptiste Plaza. I love that image because it constantly reminds me of why we do what we do. Think about the life of someone like Frederick Douglass, a man born into slavery on a southern plantation, a man who would never be allowed to attend school, a man who would teach himself to read and write, a man who would go on to become a prominent preacher, author, activist, and speaker, and who would eventually give his final public lecture on our campus in 1895. Frederick Douglass's life is not just the story of one person's progress. It's a story about how one person can help the progression of an entire society. That's why I see that statue as a constant reminder of why we do what we do in higher ed. We do it to change our students' lives in positive ways so they can change society in positive ways. That is the work we do. It's incredibly important work, and I'm so looking forward to doing that work with all of you as we move our university forward. Thank you.
You said Dr. Budgetor, University Overlord, is that what it was?
University Overlord.
University Over. Dr. Bernotsky, or Laurie, I'm sure I speak on behalf of many of my colleagues in the audience. We're thrilled that you're here. We're glad that you have addressed us in the way that you've had and have given us the opportunity to help you shape what Westchester is going to look like for the next 150 years. Folks, we're going to adjourn and go out to the quad. As Laurie said, it's food, fun, and fellowship. So make sure you go out to the quad there and have an opportunity to engage with one another and enjoy the food. And thank you all for coming. Have a great day.